While congressional Republicans fight over a $95 billion attempt at a third reconciliation package, left unanswered is how Washington is actually going to pay for it. Rand Paul has been pushing his proposal on X, writing, "You work, pay taxes, and follow the law." Meanwhile, Washington funnels your money to non-citizens through welfare programs riddled with fraud. I introduced the End Welfare for Non-Citizens Act to end this practice. And Washington hands out food stamps, housing aid, and cash to illegal aliens while American families struggle. That ends with my End Welfare for Non-Citizens Act. The Kentucky Senators' End Welfare for Non-Citizens Act would, well, end the allocation of federal funds for welfare benefits for any refugee, asylee, or non-citizen illegally present in the country. In other words, the Republicans' bill would stop taxpayers from bankrolling Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, housing vouchers, college tuitions, and everything in between for illegals. Michael, can you steel man for me the case that, why I have a baby at home, I have a husband, we both work 1 billion hours a week. Why am I paying for Social Security for illegals?
You're not.
What?
Illegal immigrants are not eligible for welfare benefits. Now,
on paper.
But they're saying non-citizens.
Non-citizens.
Yeah.
No.
That's right. So what are you going to do? Go door to door and find the people who are eligible, who are doling out money to their families?
If you have an anchor baby and you get SNAP for your anchor baby,
well,
it applies to the entire household, even if you're an illegal.
It applies to the anchor baby. It doesn't necessarily apply to the people living in the house.
Oh, come on.
That's the problem.
Fungible.
But there is nobody who is a non-citizen who is getting a tax benefit or a subsidy or a Medicare or a welfare benefit.
That's not even true. That's not even true.
It is
we
true.
have the facts. We have
It's
the facts.
the law.
In the CBO's 2024 study of Joe Biden's open border crisis, the budget watchdog estimated that the influx of immigrants and their children would cost taxpayers an extra $177 billion in new deficit spending over the next decade. Yes, because that's how CBO scores work. It's over the 10-year period.
Well, that was a
While
score.
we don't have a score of Paul's bill,
convenient.
the Center for Immigration Studies found that compared to 37% of citizen households and 51% of households headed by legal immigrants, 61% of households headed by illegal aliens use at least one major welfare program.
Is there fraud in the system? Yes. Okay. Yes. It's a great foil for the Republicans, of course.
If
but there's no
61%
law.
of households headed by illegal aliens use at least one major welfare benefit. And Democrats are going to vote against that? Alex.
Well, I want to jump in because you mentioned the anchor baby example. I think that this is a perfect time that lawmakers can come in and try to play off of what the Supreme Court did with their birthright citizenship ruling. If they find an issue with the birthright citizenship, anchor babies, then they can come in ways and find, I think Tim and you and I have talked about this, ways to curtail that industry through legislation, whether it's through different types of programs, whether it's also through surrogacy. But you know what? When I ask lawmakers, Mercy, I've asked some senators, I'm like, do you have a plan B with this birthright citizenship? What's going on? I mean, the arguments, there is no plan B.
Look, the reality is that this piece of legislation, this Rand Paul legislation, it's not going to go through.
Why? Why are we such big
Because it's redundant. It's already illegal.
You're going to need, unless it goes through the budget reconciliation process, which
this is what
going
it could
through.
be.
If it is going through there, I think you're still going to have some of these senators, like the Murkowskis of the world, like the Susan Collins of the world, that may not go forward with this. What makes it different, it's not just those people without legal status.
Why are we such bad?
I don't mean to be so negative. Hello, guys, we can't even get the SAVE Act across the finish line.
You got to get people on the record.
I wish I could have
We're running the midterms right now, and you're running against waste, fraud, and abuse. It's one of the biggest priorities of President Trump. This is an avenue to get Democrats on the record to vote against it.
You're going to say that Senator Thune is going to push forward this piece of legislation?
He better, yes, because this gets them on the record of saying, I'm not.
The day he pushes through the SAVE Act, right, and the president wanted him to push through the SAVE Act. Has that really happened yet?
It's a political...
But the difference is the SAVE Act can't be passed through reconciliation.
Well, they're trying.
This can be.
They're trying.
Emergency services and hospital services for free.
Clearly, you haven't been to Springfield, Ohio, by the way.
Just going to brown people.
Because there's more fraud and abuse in Springfield, Ohio than you could ever imagine. You need to learn more, Michael.
Is that where they eat cats?
You need to learn more.
We should take a rights squad field trip there.
I'd avoid eating cats, but it does impact refugees and asylees in addition to these aliens without legal status.
Information. Truth is freedom. is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.